The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, February the 1st. Yay, we made it out of January. Here on the Pace Radio Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. And as always, I am joined by the one and only, the lovely Miss Cindy Howell, my joint host here on the network. How's it going, Cindy?
Good evening, Kim. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm charged. I'm energized. Life is exciting right now. It's February 1st in 2022. Action going on all over the world, including in the psychedelic world. Lots going on here too, right?
Yeah. It's actually, some of the stories are pretty exciting. Well, they're all pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great catching up with the psychedelic news and views that are going on in the world. And we're going to cover some stuff globally here today on the Pace Radio Network. We've had some time away from the Psychedelic Reporters news desk, and a lot piled up. We're going back a little bit because of our break. But there was a lot of news out there to choose from. And of course, Bufo Alverius is out there scouring the news wires and then comes over and whispers in our ears and tells us about all the stuff that he finds.
Yes, he does.
Yes,
he likes to do that.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to change things up after our intro now. We're going to give you one real quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back at you with our top 10 stories, starting with the first 5 that Bufo Alverius has picked out for you this week here on the Psychedelic Reporters. So stay tuned. We got a whole lot of psychedelics to talk about.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Open your eyes.
Next week on Psychedelic Tuesdays, tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern for Open Your Eye, our 90-minute video podcast with Kim Cooper and me, Cindy Howell, where we sit down with patients, facilitators, lawyers, and others in the space to discuss their experiences and endeavors working with psychedelic medicine. Join us on Psychedelic Tuesdays each week at 7 p.m. Eastern for all of your news and information from the world of psychedelic medicine.
Bufo here, your psychedelic reporter, here on paceradio.net.
That was just a real quick break and let you know what's going on here on Psychedelic Tuesdays at this time slot next week. Without any further ado, let's get to this week's top stories. Our first story is coming at us from Wired. This is my brain on salvia. I loaned my head to the world's first fMRI study on the effects of salvinorin, a potent psychedelic, and here's what it revealed, according to this article. Ooh, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So there's a picture of the plant, just if anybody was kind of curious, which I thought was kind of cool. The last thing I remember from Base Reality was the piped-in voice of a researcher counting down to 0, confined within an fMRI machine in the basement of a research hospital in Baltimore, with a mask over my eyes and the countdown crackling through my earbuds. I felt if I were an astronaut about to blast into orbit. But where I was headed was far stranger than space. I had lent my gray matter to researchers. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It made me think of your recount of your experience, right? I had lent my gray matter to researchers at Johns Hopkins University for the first imaging study of what your brain does on Salvorian a potent, naturally occurring psychedelic produced by a plant called Salvia divinorum. I was laying inside a machine that would use massive magnets to peer into my brain as I reported my experience with the study back in 2019. I had just inhaled an unspecified dose of a pure crystalline substance from a hose attached to what one of the researchers characterized as an FDA-approved crack pipe. Over the course of an hour, I was given 2 doses. I was given 2 doses, a placebo and a Salvorian. But I hadn't been told in advance which was which, and I hadn't felt anything on the first dose, which meant that this particular hit that he was taking was the one that, when as the researcher hit 0, I would start the feeling of the drug's powerful effects. I mean, I love the way that this person wrote this story. I find it so interesting. You kind of just get really involved. It's like, oh my gosh, what is he going to feel?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty intense. I love that they used a placebo in there as well to, do the comparative of the brain waves with and without. I think that's excellent. And I can totally relate to what this guy's experience was. He says he knew what he was getting into, and he had done a trial run the day before, laying on a couch in a lab that was furnished to look like a tastefully trippy living room. I can relate to that. During that experience, he had felt physical self disintegrating, and stunning diamond pattern began rolling from both sides of his face towards the boundless horizons. Any sense of self washed away, and time became meaningless abstraction. It was pure existence having an encounter with the infinite. Beautifully stated. I had a really difficult time putting my experience into words.
Yeah, because you mean like he kind of like, even though he took the handshake dose the day before, he was still given instruction on, like, you're gonna do this. This is what you're taking. He knew kind of half what to expect. From what I remember of what you say, you were just kind of like, hey, you want to try this? Hey, sure, let's try this, and you blasted off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did a big dose. I've never done it before, and I just went boom. And it was a blast off. All right, it was you go somewhere else. You're not here. You're on another plane of existence. It's absolutely incredible. It's incredible.
Yes.
They say that his psychedelics experience in the fMRI machine was markedly less outworldly. On the second round, he saw some colorful pinwheels, and he felt as though his body had merged with the machine. But he didn't enter another dimension on this one or dissolve into pure being. This may have been because he had received a lower dose the prior. Or it could have been because it's harder to give into the experience when you're on the inside of a giant machine making a racket while it soaks in your head with a powerful magnetic field. So I mean, it could have been a combination of both prior use, lower dose on this use, as well as the environment. As you know, Cindy, environment is everything, right?
Oh yeah, no, set and setting is absolutely important. Putting intention into your medicine, absolutely important. But I like that what they did is studied what it did to his brain. and was it the medicine or like, and where they did the placebo, they had the comparison. It really caught my eye. I thought that the first, like, as he was explaining it at first, he explained it very, very well. And as much as we've had conversations, like a lot of these psychedelics, when you're, especially these shorter lived ones, you can kind of understand what the other person sees. It's kind of like, because they all take us to a different plane. The plane may be different, but they all take us to a different plane. And so when what this guy wrote, I resonated actually with your story when I first read it, and I thought it was going to be a fantastic one.
Yeah. And your own experience, even with iboga, would be similar. Like they're all along a similar plane. Like we're going somewhere. We're speaking to something. They're taking you somewhere.
Absolutely. I really related it with the 5-MeO when I was reading this gentleman's story, because it's, again, where it's so short-lived, it reminded me of that short-lived experience, right? Like, blast off, here you are somewhere else, and oh, hey, now we're going to send you home almost as fast, right? Kaboom.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great experience, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm really excited that they did scans on his brains. I'm not sure if I'd be able to do that myself if I was on a psychedelic being inside a tube. I don't think I'd be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I could be in that machine being on psychedelics. I don't think I could do it.
He says he wasn't here to touch the face of God. The point was to allow the researchers to watch his brain, and those and the 11 other volunteers in the study on salvia. The team was led by Manoj Das, a postdoctoral researcher in neuropharmacology at Johns Hopkins University, working under the guidance of a veteran psychedelic scientist, Roland Griffiths. A decade earlier, Griffiths had orchestrated the first controlled study of subjective effects of Salvinorin A to get better understanding of how the drug produces its incredibly strong psychedelic effects, and whether it might have any clinical relevance for treating conditions like depression or drug addiction. They needed to see what was happening at a neural level. So the subject got high for science. I mean, hey, why not?
For science.
For science. Yeah, last week. And this was done back in November. So last week was probably the end of October type thing. The team published the results of the study in scientific reports detailing what they saw in the brains as they tripped, being the 12 subjects. The most prominent effect seen in all 12 subjects was a significant decrease in the synergy of the default mode network. The network is a mesh of brain regions that is primarily associated with internal thoughts, but also plays a role in memory and emotion. It's activated when we're thinking about ourselves and others, or orientating ourselves in space and time. Different regions of the brain will allow increased activity when we focus on a specific task outside of ourselves, like reading or playing an instrument. But the default mode network is what pops back on when we turn our attention back on ourselves. And that's what salvia is focusing on.
Yeah. I mean, it's another lengthy article. Every article we read on psychedelics is enormous. We've given you the meat and the bones. I'm going to bring us back in, Cindy. We've given you the meat and bones of this. We encourage you to go and read the remainder of the article available to you on Wired. Excellent article with a focus on salvia. One of the first major psychedelic short-term major that makes you trip like that instantly that I have ever done. And quite frankly, at the time, scared the living shit out of me. Given what I know right now, I can't wait to do it again. But yeah, there's that, right?
Yeah, but doing it again, you'll have better expectations, right? It'll be similar yet different. It's and that's what that's what I've been told, right? So like I'm really excited to go and experience some of mine again, just to see how it's going to be similar yet different. Like I'm super excited, right? Exactly. I totally get that. Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to go on to our next article. This is coming to us from Microdose. A new Johns Hopkins study finds that psilocybin is 4 times more effective than antidepressants. How very cool is that?
Yeah. Yeah. A new Johns Hopkins study is furthering the evidence that psilocybin may treat depression 4 times more effectively than antidepressant medication. The study published on November 4th in JAMA Psychiatry was the first randomized clinical trial to focus narrowly on psilocybin's potential in treating long-term clinical depression. Simply titled Effects of Psilocybin-Assisted Therapy on Major Depressive Disorder, the study includes 24 participants with the following demographics. They break them up: 16 women, 8 men, collectively, averaging 39 years old. Most of them have had depression on average for 21.5 years. No psychotic disorders among them, and no participants were currently taking any other antidepressant medication. And that's really important to note.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to go into these things with a clean system because you don't know how these things are going to interact with prescription drugs that you may be on. You don't want to be mixing these kind of powerful compounds together without knowing what the outcome is. And that's what these studies are for, is to find out what the outcome is without anything else before we start adding stuff into the mix. Absolutely very important step. Participants underwent 120 milligram psilocybin dosage while they laid on a couch wearing eye shades and listening to music. The participants did this for a second time in 1.6 weeks later, and this time undergoing a 30 milligram psilocybin dosage. Like most Johns Hopkins psychedelic studies, the participants next met with mental health professionals before and after each session to see to catalog how they were doing. I love the little pictures they've got here.
Yeah,
Bunch of little happy faces and sad faces.
Yeah. The study found psilocybin-assisted therapy was infectious in producing large, rapid, and sustained antidepressant effects in patients with major depressive disorder. More specifically, the study concluded the following. Following the first psilocybin session, 67% of participants reported more than 50% decrease in depression symptoms. That is on 20 milligrams, one little tiny 20 milligram dose. Yeah. Following the second psilocybin session, so now they're taking 50 milligrams altogether, right? 71% of the participants reported more than 50% decrease in depression symptoms. That's freaking huge. At 4-week follow-up, 54% of the participants still felt as if they were in remission, which is a severe decrease in their symptoms. That's incredible.
Yeah. After a week. You and I know this from microdosing. Microdosing is a godsend. I do my macro doses periodically, but the microdosing is what's working, and that sustains you. You do a small amount and you're good for days. And the longer that you stay on that, the less often you need it. So more spaced out your microdoses become with larger gaps in between. While this study was small in size, there was a couple of things worth noting about the experiment. First, the study lacks the terms of size it makes up for in robust data, which warrants more research. The reality of psychedelic science is that regardless of shared enthusiasm within the community, it is still a niche research topic. That being said, when judged on methodology, merit, and outcomes, the study is groundbreaking in its own right, according to the authors. Second, the results of this study are complementary to several previous studies confirming psilocybin's potential to treat depression symptoms. Such studies most notably include the works in Robin Carhart Harris as well as Roland R. Griffith. In all cases, psilocybin was concluded to be promising adjunct to psychotherapy, particularly for clients with treatment-resistant depression. Love the picture of this beautiful, colorful mushroom in the next shot.
Yeah, isn't that gorgeous? Yeah. A different mechanism to treating depression. We know that psilocybin therapy is not only more effective than antidepressants, but it's effective for a completely different reason. The most common and effective conventional antidepressant medications are SSRIs. These work by blocking the reuptake of serotonin, leaving more serotonin in the brain of the user. SSRIs are easily more effective than than their tricyclic predecessors. And the aim of psychedelic medicine is not to render existing SSRIs useless. Rather, psychedelic medicine aims to help the 30% of the individuals who do not reap the benefits from SSRIs. Why not just toss the SSRIs and give everybody mushrooms?
Yes.
Moreover, psilocybin therapy is promising for the demographic and triggering activity in different parts of the brain than regular antidepressants, rather than creating a buffer to stimuli awareness. An effect of antidepressants commonly felt as fogginess. Psilocybin increases the user's ability to engage with stimuli. Which is fantastic. Yeah. Instead of being fogged out of life, you become stimulated with life again.
Yeah, you become dealing with part of life once again. And once again, I'm going to go back to my good old tagline. Yep, another hugely long article. Go on and check it out. No one is left behind in the psychedelic revolution. According to this article, very last line, no one, including those failed by antidepressants, will be left behind, will be left in a mental health crisis during a psychedelic medicine revolution. Love that. I'm gonna pop this back in. Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what it is. It's a psychedelic medicine revolution. Absolutely, big time. Yeah, we've got so much more to talk about with you tonight. We're going to get right to our next story, which is another interesting one that is still loading, and it's loading, and it's loading, and it's here. And we're going to bring this one to you from The Guardian. Psychedelic drug DMT is to be trialed in the UK to treat depression. Another trial. Imagine that. It's going to help with depression.
Yes. UK regulators have given the go-ahead for the first clinical trial of the use of the psychedelic drug dimethyltryptamine, DMT, to treat depression. The trial will initially give the drug known as the spirit molecule for powerful hallucinogenic trips it induces to healthy individuals, but is expected to be followed by a second trial in patients with depression, where DMT will be given alongside psychotherapy. Taking the drug before therapy is akin to shaking up a snow globe and letting the flakes settle, said Carol Rutledge, who is the chief scientific and medical officer at Small Pharma, the company running the trial in collaboration with Imperial College London.
So very cool. And see, this is why we call it DMT. I'm going to take a stab at it once and once only. Oh, dimethyltryptamine.
Very good.
I think that's correct.
That is, yeah, you're bang on.
Again, DMT works. DMT works. Taking this drug before therapy is akin to shaking up a snow globe and letting the flakes settle, says Carol Rutledge, the chief scientific medical officer there. That's such a perfect analogy for psychedelic medicines as a whole. The psychedelic drug breaks up all of the remunerative thought processes in your brain. It literally undoes what has been done either by stress or stress you've been through, or the depressive thoughts that you have, and hugely increases the making of new connections. The psychotherapy sessions afterwards is the letting things settle piece of the puzzle, and it helps you make a sense of those thoughts and puts you back on the right track. We think this could be a treatment for a number of depressive orders besides major depression, including PTSD treatment and treatment for treatment-resistant depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and possibly some of the types of substance abuse. You think?
Yes, we think DMT is found in several plants and is one of the active ingredients in ayahuasca, which is a bitter drink consumed during shamanistic rituals in South America and some other places. DMT is also available as a street drug in the UK, where it is classified as a Schedule A substance, carrying a maximum penalty of 7 years in jail for possession and life imprisonment for supply. The Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency approved the trial on Monday, and Small Pharma is currently involved in discussions with Home Office, which must also give permission because DMT is the controlled substance there. The hope is that the initial trial, which aims to establish the lowest dose of DMT that elicits a psychedelic experience, could begin in January, so this past month. It will involve 32 healthy volunteers who had never previously taken a psychedelic drug, including ecstasy or ketamine. And then this will be followed by a trial with 36 patients who have clinical depression.
Why do you not? And you can't have taken the drugs before. That's an odd criteria, I think. I don't know. I wonder why that is. I'm just curious about that. The treatment will be modeled on studies of psilocybin, the psychedelic ingredient, of course, in magic mushrooms. That's being used widely in depression. Here, patients are brought into a clinic where they undergo a setting session, during which clinicians prime them to open their mind to the drug and ensures that they are comfortable and relaxed. Next, they are administered the drug, and once the psychedelic experience ends, the patient immediately undergo a session of psychotherapy. The difference with the DMT is that the psychedelic experience comes on faster and more intensely, but it's also over more quickly. Whereas with psilocybin sessions, it takes all day. And if you're doing 2 or more of those, then that's a large time commitment. DMT session all in will probably take you under 2 hours, according to the doctor, Peter Rands. He's Small Pharma's CEO.
Yeah, which is true. You could do 2 sessions of DMT and have a psychotherapy session within 2 hours quite easily, right? You might even, once you do it, you actually might want more time with your psychotherapist because it's pretty profound and pretty cool, right? We expect DMT to be a rapid acting equivalent or perhaps even better than psilocybin. So within hours of a session, you will get rapid relief from your depression. We also expect the effect to be sustained over a similar time period. A recent trial of psilocybin and psychotherapy found a continued reduction in patients' depressive symptoms 4 weeks after taking the drug, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, 4 weeks off. What we read in previously with 50 milligrams. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's you're drug and pharmaceutical free. And you're for 4 weeks. I mean, why is this a last resort? I'm going to ask one more time. Why is this a last resort? Why must we go through the whole gambit of pills and disappointment after disappointment because it doesn't work before we get to this point? It just doesn't make any sense. Treatment resistant just means that all the stuff you've been trying to pump into us didn't work. Just go to this first. Previous studies with ayahuasca have also suggested that it might have an antidepressant effect. Yeah, you think? According to Amanda Fielding, founder and director of Oxfordshire-based Beckley Foundation, which designs and develops psychedelic drug research to inform global drug policy. I myself don't find DMT to be a very lovable compound. But it's definitely an interesting study to do, she said. It's a harsher compound than other psychedelics like psilocybin or LSD, where the experience is more like a flower opening and receiving what's already inside you. DMT triggers a strong psychedelic trip where people experience what they call entities. They meet beings who seem to be real, like being in a dream, but it can be rather take one over. So, I mean, it throws you in, you experience it all very quickly, and then it throws you back home. It's it's not gentle by any means.
No, and none of them are. Like, I mean, they help you. You can look back at it with a smile because you learn a lot and you heal a lot, but it's hard work, and the medicine makes you do it.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring us
Yeah.
back in, Cindy.
Okie
Once
dokie.
again, it's another hugely long article, and they go on to talk about cannabis and psilocybin and LSD and MDMA and ketamine, and the whole gambit is touched on. I encourage people once again to go in and check out this article from The Guardian, entitled Psychedelic Drug DMT to be Trialed in UK to Treat Depression. It's a very good article, and if you're interested in this path, then you should definitely look it up. I think we've got one more before break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, 2 more. We got 2 more before break. This is the second last one. Core One Labs is now also working on a biosynthesized DMT, and they received their license. Why do we have to biosynthesize this stuff? Why can't we just use the real thing?
Vancouver, British Columbia. So this is here in Canada. Core One Labs is pleased to announce that it has progressed its work on biosynthesizing the NN version of DMT. I'm still learning all the different versions, and someday I will know exactly what it is. NM, Changa, 5-MeO, 4-ACO. There's a few of them. So this one is biosynthesizing NN DMT. And has been approved by Health Canada to add NMDMT to the schedule of approved controlled substances under the existing license granted by the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act. The dealer's license, which allows its wholly owned subsidiary, Vocan Biotechnics, to research and produce biosynthesized psilocybin. Really?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it goes on to talk, a bit about the company and tell us, how wonderful they are and everything. And then it says the company is confident that the replication of historical research and development process performed for its successful biosynthesis of psilocybin will allow for a more rapid turnaround of its second biosynthesized psychedelic compound, DMT. So they're going after DMT and biosynthesizing that next. Following a similar processing of engineering and design, it may also increase probability of the company's filling of a patent for this second proprietary compound in the near term. Once again, the pharmaceutical companies are jumping on board for this and biting at the bit so that they can recreate something synthetically that already exists in nature and stick it in a capsule and then sell it to you at your local doctor's office.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, like, when I read this, the only thing it does make me happy about is the fact that they're paying attention to this kind of stuff works.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You are correct. I'm going to bring us back in.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that they're studying it, and that's the rub, though, right? They've got to study it for us to advance acceptance, knowledge, and science on this. But the problem is, as soon as they start studying these things, they want to recreate them synthetically all over the place, and then stick a patent on them and let's go to market. Just stick with the actual bloody real thing. It's available out there in various ways. We don't be needing to recreate this stuff synthetically. That's what got most of us in this mess to start with. But I digress. Good luck to you guys, and I wish you well. We're going to go to our final story before the break. Cindy, can you take the headline for me for a sec?
Sure. We are at news at the U. Increased psychedelic use during pandemic prompts new research, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Denise Vito, a University of Miami epidemiologist who has studied the impact of cannabis on well-being for a decade, has broadened her laboratory's research to include psilocybin, aiming to explain a surge in use of both substances during the pandemic.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, people are depressed during this pandemic, and I'm not surprised that they're reaching out for psychedelics. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in mainstream media, as we know from all of the stories we cover, that people are starting to gravitate back to this world. The ones that left it behind, or the ones that never explored it in the first place, are now taking another look. So they say the overreaching focus of the psychedelic branch of her International Cannabis and Psychedelic Research Lab is to assess how psilocybin is independently affecting mental health and the pandemic, and how psilocybin in conjunction with cannabis affects mental health symptoms and the cardiovascular disease risk, as well as what they're looking at, according to V. Dot, the assistant professor in the School of Nursing and Health Studies.
Yeah. What we're trying to do is study mental health and cardiovascular health through the use of plants and fungi psychedelics, she explained, noting that the most existing studies on the substances focus solely on psychological health, including depression, anxiety, and trauma. Our approach uniquely seeks to add understanding of the impact on the brain, heart, and gut. The three are interconnected, she said. When the brain is stressed, the heart rate increases and hormones are secreted into the microbiome, which is the gut stomach, which prompts negative implications for health. She noted the consequences for the heart and gut are much less known.
Yeah. I mean, this is going on at a time when people are diving into natural medicines, and these things do have to be studied. We have to find out if they have effects on other parts of our body. We just simply do not know. We don't think they do, but we simply do not know. And that's doing these studies will put those animosities to bed once and for all. So I'm happy to see them being done. So the new research was sparked back in March of 2020, the day the World Health Organization declared the pandemic. She started working nonstop to design the COVID-19 cannabis health study, as it was unclear if cannabis dispensaries were going to stay open to serve medical cannabis consumers. Luckily, she says, a few months later, the dispensaries were designated as an essential business, she said. So noting the irony of the transformation, how did cannabis go from being an illegal substance with a stigma to an essential business that stayed open during a pandemic? Of course, this too will wind up being part of the study. The study, for the first time, she had questioned about the co-use of cannabis with other substances, one of which was psilocybin. I didn't realize that I'd be stumbling on such important findings, she said.
Yeah. She was pleased with the initial batch of 17 survey responses. She sought to broaden the outreach and, turned her many contacts within the field. The National Organization for the Reform of Cannabis Laws or Marijuana Laws proved especially helpful. Collaborator support in circulating the survey garnered 3,000 responses from around the globe. It was such a shock. But it shows the importance of the question to the general public, which is true. What can cannabis and psilocybin actually do? That's a huge response.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge response. The findings showed that a significant number of patients eligible for medical cannabis started or increased use of psilocybin during the pandemic. That's not surprising to me, but I think it would be for a lot of people. So the lab is conducting 5 ongoing studies of psychedelics. There are 2 that are related to the pandemic scenario and the co-use of cannabis as well as psilocybin, and a third explores the health effects of psilocybin used together with polysubstances, such as alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, among others. And the other two examine the use of ketamine, the synthetic version of some of the psychedelics. VDOT noted that psilocybin remains illegal and that ketamine, legalized, is therefore easier to study.
Yeah, her current
Get a
lab
section 56, you'd be good.
Yeah. Then you're good to go. Cannabis, psychedelics, and other types of alternative medicine approaches are the future. She said, being able to train this next generation of scientists or healthcare professionals, even if they don't move into this field, is vital. Just the awareness of replacing the stigma with knowledge is extremely important. Yeah,
absolutely. It so is. I'm going to try and skip down to the bottom. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything really, really, really important in this article. Let's skip back down to the second last paragraph there, I guess. At the Miller School of Medicine, Dr. Michael E. Hoffer, professor of otolaryngology and neurological surgery, has been studying mild traumatic brain injury for the past 15 years, and his laboratory was funded to study the use of a pill form of cannabidiol, or CBD, in a compound with microdoses of psilocybin would effectively treat and possibly prevent symptoms of conditions relating to concussions and other similar MTBI injuries. Hoffer's research has documented that 60 to 70% of those with concussive type injuries generally suffer no lingering effects beyond 7 to 10 days, yet 30 to 40% suffer side effects that may persist for weeks or months or even longer without absent of the treatment. So I mean, this is groundbreaking stuff if it's going to help people with concussion heal faster with less cognitive effects.
Yes. And we have seen bits and pieces of how psilocybin can help us heal physically, and help our brain bounce back. And Paul Stamets cured his stutter with psilocybin. Yes, so it can do amazing, brilliant things. Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to pop this in here. Seeing these kinds of studies going on at, regulated clinics, places like Johns Hopkins, diving on board. We're in an exciting age. We're in a very exciting age where we're expanding our knowledge on psychedelic medicines. It's very, very cool indeed. And with that last story as our top 5, that means it's medication time.
It is. That means it's time to pay bills. Stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors. And then Kim and I will be back with another 5 news items that Bufo has kind of whispered into our ears. And we'll be making mainstream media news.
Absolutely. All right. We'll be back in about 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Stay tuned for more, folks.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
The Pace Radio Network is the place to be for all your information from the world of psychedelics, because we are pleased to bring our listeners 2 shows focusing on psychedelic therapy in the world of natural medicine. First up, we have Open Your Eye, which airs on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month. Open Your Eye is a 90-minute video podcast with Kim Cooper and Cindy Howell interviewing patients and professionals in the space. Patient stories, facilitators, lawyers, and others discuss their journeys and endeavors involving psychedelic medicine. But they're not done. because Kim and Cindy are back on alternate Tuesdays at 7 p.m. with Psychedelic Reporters as they bring along the show's mascot, Bufo, aka the Colorado Mud Toad, who is scouring the news wires for all the latest in psychedelic news. He then passes it on to Kim and Cindy to cover in this 60-minute video news podcast. So tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern for Psychedelic Tuesdays right here on the Pace Radio Network, found at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
Bufo here, your psychedelic reporter, here on paceradio.net.
And back.
I'm so sorry. And we're back from our medication session live. We are live. I guarantee it. Live here at the Psychedelic Reporters here at paceradio.net. My cat was over here hitting me is what was going on. And that's what had me giggling. I'm so sorry.
That's all good. It's all good. We got another 5 stories coming at you here today from the world of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. What do you think, Cindy?
Okay. Oh, goody. Yes, heading over to the psychedelic spotlight. Yeah. My cat likes this story.
Spotlight.
Yeah.
Oh, your cat is very interested in this story, that's for sure. This is very cool. We wanted to start off the segment with this one. Our first story that we start off with, we usually go a little long in the tooth with it, and this one deserves the attention. How psychedelic treatment through Canada's SAP works. This was released today, brand new, hot off the press, as they say. We're going to be looking at the psychedelic industry insiders as they reflect on the progress and the flaws within Health Canada's recent amendment to the Special Access Program.
Yes. Last month, Health Canada's new Special Access Program, the SAP, amendment went into effect, allowing physicians to request access to psilocybin, MDMA, DMT, LSD, and other psychedelic treatments not officially approved for sale in the country. The amendment, which reversed a 2013 policy prohibiting special access to restricted drugs, signifies a positive change in the healthcare industry's perception of psychedelics. But while medical professionals and psychedelic advocates respond with enthusiasm, the news also ignited a few misconceptions around program eligibility and psychedelic legality.
Yeah, it did. A lot of whirlwind stuff going on in the age of social media. This is a quote from Health Canada. This amendment shows that Health Canada is aware of the promise of psychedelic therapy and committed to understanding more through further research, says Dr. D.J. Cook, head of neurosurgery at Queen's University and the chief medical officer at Dimensions Healing. But it won't be an assured means of acquiring these medicines for therapy. There will be a threshold to gain approval, he says. To better understand, we dig deeper into how the program will work, who it will benefit, and whether there's potential for full legalization. So the first step, I guess, here would be, how does the special access program work, Cindy?
Well, the article says for several years, Canadian healthcare providers have relied on Health Canada's SAP to access otherwise unavailable drugs for serious or life-threatening conditions, particularly when traditional paths fail to yield positive outcomes. For example, the SAP might grant access to a not yet approved chemotherapy drug for a patient with a rare tumor, or a new antiviral for a patient with a long-standing treatment-resistant HIV. However, requests are decided on a case-by-case basis and don't automatically guarantee access. When a healthcare professional determines a patient may benefit from a drug that is not yet available for sale, they must submit a request to Health Canada and wait for a decision. If approved, the manufacturer is cleared to supply the drug to licensed healthcare professional to distribute to their patient. When it comes to psychedelics, healthcare providers can only access drugs from a dealer licensed under the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act. In other words, the SAP doesn't give carte blanche to all psychedelics from any source. So if you want to take any of these things with a prescription, they have to come from a source where the government is controlling it.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're looking at giving you your right to grow and that kind of thing. I mean, we know Alison Mearden is currently fighting for that, former joint host here on the network, has filed for her Section 56 for several avenues with the help of lawyers Paul Lewin as well as Jack Lloyd. So according to Kelsey Ramsey, the co-founder of CEO of MindCure, he agrees that integration is essential, and he thinks people are a bit misguided about the idea that psychedelics without psychotherapy will get the same kind of result, she says. Having psychotherapy paired with these drugs allows people to integrate what they learn. Of course, patients can choose to seek psychological therapy alongside the medication on their own, and healthcare professionals may even encourage psychotherapy or include it with the care plan, but it's certainly not required. Psychotherapy, I mean, I believe in psychotherapy is beneficial for some people, but I don't think it is for everyone, and I only come to that realization when I realized it wasn't quite for me personally. I find I do better on my own without the psychotherapy. I find it, for me, it jumbles things, but that's just me personally. And I think I'm a small portion of the population. Most people greatly benefit for the psychotherapy. I just don't have that personality set myself. Who will likely benefit most from the SAP? Well, we still don't know, according to Health Canada.
Yeah. Health Canada defines life-threatening regarding mental health conditions, or how many failed conventional treatments are necessary before a patient can access a psychedelic drug. And we likely won't know more until there have been a significant number of cases either authorized or denied. But experts have some ideas about which conditions may be more likely to get approval. I think individuals in a palliative state who are experiencing death anxiety, for instance, and where there is a reasonable literature supporting the use of psychedelics to treat anxiety, have a clear case, Dr. Cook said. Additionally, he notes patients with treatment-resistant PTSD and those with a high potential for suicidality also have a strong case. But again, the threshold and the requirements of proof are unknown. Without a concrete list of conditions, we can assume Health Canada will follow the data and studies on psychedelic use in end-of-life care, Alzheimer's care, and treatments for people grappling with PTS, post-traumatic stress, do make compelling arguments.
Yeah, for sure. Kelsey also believes that the conditions that fall onto these serious or life-threatening categories will shift as clinical research evolves and the SAP fields more cases. I believe that over time we're going to see emergency classified as people who had consistent drug overdoses, for example, or we're going to see this expansion and expand and morph. The article goes on to talk about psychedelics following the same path as legalization of cannabis, which seems to be a fear for a lot of people out there. I'm not exactly sure why, seeing as legalization of cannabis, the sky did not fall, people aren't dying on the streets, and addicts aren't pouring into the hospitals with the legalization of cannabis. Nobody's running anybody over on the streets or anything like that. None of the stuff they feared materialized. So I'm not sure what the fear for this is based on. One of the biggest questions amidst the amendment rollout is whether psychedelics are on the same course to legalization as cannabis. However, it appears, at least in this stage, that Health Canada is treating these drugs more like a controlled medicine and less like a recreational substance.
What we're talking about with respect to psychedelic medicine is very different than cannabis, Kelsey says. Comparing the two is like comparing a Ferrari to a Toyota Tercel. Both will get you places, but one is very powerful and requires a lot of experience to handle properly. I mean, who do you want to put behind the wheel of something that performs that way? Dr. Cook echoes the sentiment and says that the pathway to legalization for psychedelics should be more closely resembled pharmaceutical development than cannabis. I hope that there is a more metered and regulated approach to accessing therapies, he said. But even with its limitations and ambiguous thresholds for accessibility, the new amendment is an exciting step in a progressive direction. It is also a clear signal that regulators are interested in seeing psychedelics advance. And as new data moves science forward, patients' firsthand accounts will likely sway culture towards normalization and acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. The more we have individuals who can speak to the transformative effects of psychedelics for mental health care, the better we will be, Kelsey says. It's a treatment to the forward-thinking nature of our healthcare system. And for that, I'm grateful, he says. Excellent article,
Yes.
coming out. I'm going to bring us back in. Excellent article coming out on the steps that Health Canada are taking and the steps that these clinicians are taking to push that agenda forward and push that research forward. It's an exciting time here in Canada as far as psychedelic medicine.
It is. I think a lot of people are as we read about, like they're trying, especially psilocybin. It's very much out there, and I think that as they try it and they do go back to their therapists and say, "Hey, the big difference has been I've been microdosing psilocybin." That's what's getting the therapists on it because they're seeing it firsthand as their patients are getting better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Our next story is coming at us from the Digital Journal. Kind of interesting. Inversio Wellness announces inclusion on Health Canada's list of licensed psilocybin producers. So another company is jumping in.
Yes, yeah. This is out in Surrey, BC. Advisoro Wellness Limited, the company, a Canadian mushroom wellness company, is pleased to announce that it has been included on Health Canada's list of federally licensed psilocybin producers. Health Canada's list of approved psilocybin producers provides qualified healthcare practitioners access to psilocybin as an alternative treatment for patients under its special access program, and researchers with a source of natural psilocybin for the purpose of conducting clinical trials in Canada. The SAP is a federal program that allows qualified healthcare practitioners to request for their patients specific non-marketed medications that demonstrate clinical evidence of safety and efficacy.
Yeah, we just went through the SAP a couple of minutes ago with the last article. Much of this piece we're going to skip through because, of course, it is a bit of a puff piece about the company, telling everybody what they do and what they're all about. Another company is entering into the space and looking to advance the knowledge in psilocybin mushrooms, and that's fantastic. I'm going to skip down to just before about Inversio. Psilocybin producing mushrooms, commonly known as magic mushrooms, contain the naturally occurring psychoactive compound psilocybin and have been involved in numerous clinical trials and studies investigating their potential benefits for treating depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, addiction and withdrawal, autoimmune disease, and other brain health conditions. We've covered many of those brain health conditions on today's show, and it's very exciting to see so many companies jumping on board. No matter what my feelings are about corporate world, we need them in this space in order to advance. I'm going to bring us back in. We need them in order to advance this space.
Absolutely.
Right?
The more of them that are getting involved, that just means the more the stigma is beat down.
Yeah, absolutely. So yet another company right here in Canada diving in to the psychedelic space. Exciting times indeed. Our next story is coming to us from south of the border, Virginia politics. What's this?
Effort to decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms stalls in Virginia General Assembly. I'm not shocked. Yeah.
Virginia. Virginia. How could you stall? Things were looking sweet down there. We reported on this a few shows ago. The push to decriminalize psilocybin, the psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms, failed to get enough support in the 2022 Virginia General Assembly session. The Virginia State Senate Judiciary Committee killed the bill Monday that would have ended felony possession penalties for psilocybin for people 21 years of age and older, a week after the House subcommittee agreed to table the effort until next year. Both measures were narrowed down to apply to only adults who have consulted with a healthcare professional.
Yeah. The bills aim to reduce the possession penalties from a Class 5 felony to a $100 civil penalty. Under the current law, possession of psilocybin or psilocin in Virginia is punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a possible $2,500 fine. Yeah, that's insane. The bill in the Virginia Senate, introduced by State's Senator Ghazal Hashmi, appeared to gain bipartisan support when first presented to the Judiciary Committee on January 19th. Hashmi made changes to her bill after lawmakers expressed concerns over legalization's ability to pass through the Republican-controlled House of Delegates. Before the vote on Monday, Hashmi told the committee the initial plan for developing a full regulatory structure similar to one lawmakers aim for in legal cannabis was overwhelming to the process and unnecessary. And she said she made a simple amendment to allow the civil penalty to apply only to individuals using the substances for therapeutic reasons who are working with healthcare professionals.
Yeah, so they're going to they tabled it. It's going to come back in 2023 and see if it'll pass then. She said she didn't have experience with the substance and couldn't speak on whether people should be allowed to take psilocybin and operate a vehicle and all that kind of stuff. Her bill would have required those to receive approval from their doctor and provide proof for law enforcement if they were caught with the psilocybin. I mean, we've got the same fears that we heard with cannabis. Oh, they're going to get in their car and they're going to kill people and they're going to be running people over on the sidewalks. I mean, we heard all kinds of stuff coming up. But I mean, just because you're legalizing or decriminalizing one of these natural substances that are out there that may cause some euphoria doesn't mean people are going to misuse them. The same laws would apply for driving impaired. We already have that stuff in place. It doesn't matter what you're impaired on if you're impaired. I think a lot of it is just puff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it is hysterical envisionment. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, she doesn't have experience with the stuff. She's not a consumer of these products. I'm going to bring us back in. She's not a consumer of these products. She's not pushing it for that reason. She's pushing it for the medical reasons. And of course, for the Republican Senate in there, is it going to go? Oh, maybe not.
Yeah. Maybe not right now.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to watch and see. Not everybody is as progressive as some of the other states that have already taken these steps. We've got a couple more stories to go. Our second last one of the day. Why psychedelic compounds are the next big thing in mental health treatment market. And this is from Geek Time.
Yeah.
I love
this although
picture.
It's really pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a cat muzzling my hand now. Although each psychedelic substance, its effects and its core chemical compounds are quite different, they have followed the trail blazed by the cannabis sector to mainstream acceptance and Wall Street excitement, especially psilocybin. Psychedelic drugs are becoming an increasingly popular area of research and drug development. A market research report estimates that the sector will be worth more than $10 billion by 2027, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 12.3% from its value of $4.75 billion in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the dollar signs behind this, reminiscent of the cannabis scene. Pre-legalization here, everybody's throwing dollar signs around all over the place, and that's what's very attractive to many of these companies, of course. Most of the medical community has accepted that cannabis and psychedelics can be potentially robust treatment options for patients dealing with a slew of medical problems. For example, most agree that cannabis offers several positive benefits like anti-inflammatory properties, while psychedelics like psilocybin are increasingly being used to treat severe drug-resistant depression and other mental health conditions. Psychedelics, also known as hallucinogens, include a range of compounds, some extracted from the plants or the fungi and others made synthetically, that can induce hallucinations if administered in sufficient quantities. The most commonly used psychedelic substance include ketamine, psilocybin, the active substance in psilocybin cubanus, also known as magic mushrooms, ibogaine, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, or DMT. We're just going to leave it at DMT. And the 3.4 methyl hydroxy, MDMA is what it is. I'm not going to even try. Methamphetamine is the last portion of that, but we're talking about MDMA. We're all much more familiar with the abbreviated names, and they're much
Yes.
easier on my tongue.
Yeah, and all of us. Yeah, that is so true. Psychedelic drugs are being evaluated for treatment for a range of serious neuropsychiatric and neurodegenerative disorders, including major depressive disorder, bipolar anxiety disorders such as PTSD, as well as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The prevalence of these conditions is growing, as is the population of patients who have developed a tolerance for currently available treatments. And so novel drugs that are based on natural substances such as psychedelics are becoming more widely studied to provide a possible solution for such conditions of the mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Current treatment approach for helping people to live with depressive and PTSD depends on administering medications whose doses gradually increase. This creates a large and dependent patient population at a cost factor that is becoming a burden on the healthcare system. So, this may help newer drug discovery companies in the psychedelics medicine space to gain larger acceptance, providing that the clinical trial results that are happening all around the world remain positive. And there's absolutely no reason that they will not. We've seen this already in the legacy market and in the legacy world, treating people and self-medicating people with these substances for decades already. The traditional drugs that are currently used to treat major depressive disorders have serious side effects, and they will eventually lead to many patients to steer clear from using them. Effects such as obesity, lack of sexual desire, and anxiety are common. Also, another undesired outcome associated with these drugs is a very long intake time, meaning it takes time for the drugs to take effect. And boy, don't I know it. The list of side effects for some of these antidepressants they're passing out is staggering.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like when I used to take medication, like, modern medication like this, and I would get a new one. I mean, I would get a pamphlet almost of side effects.
Yeah.
Just the side effects, right? And it was just gross. I mean, it was terrifying until I got zombified enough that I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and it was gross.
Yeah, it is. It really is. We should jump down to in the context of post-COVID world.
Okay. In the context of post-COVID world, psychedelic healthcare will become an essential tool in the treatment of the population's worsening mental health issues. According to the mental health charity Mind, more than 2/3 of adults with mental health problems reported that their mental health worsened during the various lockdowns. What's more is that we still don't have a full picture of how the pandemic and its accompanying lockdowns have impacted and affected the general population's mental health. In response, pharmaceutical companies are looking to significantly invest in new medical treatments to address said problems. Governments have also been encouraged to act swiftly to protect the welfare of their citizens. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so true. I mean, we see it all around us with the people we know, with the people we love, and even with strangers on social media. People are popping, man, all over the place. Post-COVID world or current COVID world is wreaking havoc on our mental health system and our mental health status here in this country and beyond. It's all over the world. It's global. And we need some relief. Why not use a natural plant medicine to accomplish that? Psilocybin is a realistic and proven alternative to traditional antidepressants. In the first direct head-to-head trial comparing psilocybin with traditional antidepressants, psilocybin was found to be as effective as the leading selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, or an SSRI, with significantly lower rates of relapse post-treatment. With this in mind, it's only a matter of time before big pharmaceutical companies begin to incorporate psychedelics into their offerings. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be around the corner. Everybody's studying it. You don't relapse. There's less side effects. It lasts longer. There's no dangers. I mean, why not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, the policy towards psychedelic use is continuously evolving. We like to see the legalization of these substances becoming more widespread, making them an attractive option for investors as treatments roll out on treatments roll out on a significantly larger scale. As they begin to break the mainstream, we can look at the emergence of growth compared to the cannabis industry as a glimpse of what's to be expected from the psychedelic medical industry. As legalization, public opinion, and early investment move in an encouraging direction, it seems like that lightning could strike twice for those brave investors that are once again willing to invest in this emerging field. I just hope that they go in with the best intentions to help people with this amazing, beautiful medication.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring us back in. Absolutely, 100%. It's an exciting time for sure. We need these studies going on. They're proving efficacy all over the place, and that train's going full steam ahead, and I couldn't be happier. My bad, Carolyn. I just noticed you there. I didn't have it on comments. Hello. That was probably way at the beginning of the show.
It was.
I'm neglecting my comments tonight. My bad. We've got one story left for our show this evening that Bufo Alverius has brought to Cindy and myself. A clinical study on psychedelic drugs for cancer patients could be a game changer, according to the Salt Lake Tribune.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people in America develop depression and anxiety as a result of a cancer diagnosis. As of now, there isn't much physicians can do to treat those conditions, says Dr. Anna Beck, an oncologist and the director of end-of-life care at Huntsman's Cancer Institute. You can't throw medications for anxiety or depression at that kind of existential distress, Beck said. You need something that's really kind of out of the box. In the spirit of out of the box thinking, Beck and team of researchers at Huntsman are exploring an experimental treatment for demoralization and anxiety that often accompany cancer, group psychedelic therapy.
That's amazing. They want to see whether group psychotherapy combined with psilocybin, of course, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, can safely help people confront the sense of their own mortality. The article is published on about how psychedelics could help patients in cure.org. So if you're interested in this kind of thing and getting in touch with your own mortality and using psychedelics to do that for end-of-life therapy, that kind of thing, you could go to cure.org. I'm going to bring us back in for a real quick sec. And that one was a really brief article, but it shows you the reach that study is making here. Like, we're into end of life cancer research, using psychedelics for cancer research. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's we've come a long way.
We've come a long way, and that was our top stories for today. We'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Psychedelic Reporters on tasteradio.net and for tuning into our video podcast here on the network's brand network page, as well as the Psychedelic Reporters page and our YouTube pages. Don't forget the audio app will be available afterwards as a podcast as well.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed your update on mainstream media coverage on psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Absolutely. Many thanks to our sponsors and, of course, to my lovely joint host, lovely Miss Cindy Howell, for joining us here tonight on tonight's show and each and every week on Psychedelic Tuesdays. And of course, to you, our listeners, for joining us here each and every week. We're going to hear one more time from a band called Dead Ringer that made our intro and exit music for us out of Kirkland Lake, Ontario. And we'll be back again next week for more on Psychedelic Tuesdays.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see